Now it is.
Yeah, now it's recording. So when you
Now
all
it is
leave,
recording.
when you all after the class goes, I'll read heartbeats again. So it's recorded on the heartbeat, but I won't get all that amazing feedback that you all gave me. But you all did a great job with looking at heartbeats. And so I'm sorry there wasn't recording sooner. I thought I had. You know what it is that when I turn it on, it records right away. And sometimes I'm just sitting here like, if you see the beginnings of the recording, I'm just kind of sitting there looking at stuff, and it's like that's boring. So just if you ever see a recording, just fast forward to when the class actually starts. I don't know how to, and if somebody is good in YouTube, how to edit the film. I keep trying to do it and it just doesn't work. So, all right, let me just read one or two what time it is. Time will fly. So, all right, and I hope that so, just put in the chat if the internet, and maybe I shouldn't come here and teach from campus if the campus internet is not good enough to. So on page 20, there's one called Migration Patterns, right? And this is by, I forgot his name. I don't see his name, but I know his name is Dan Wolf. Oh, yes, it is Danny Wolf. It's down here. The name. This is for migration patterns. So migration is the, you know, it's the, for birds particularly, when you see like um, a bunch of geese flying across the sky in a in a formation, and it's the patterns that butterflies have them. You've heard of the monarch butterfly? They start in Canada and they migrate through the United States and end up in Mexico, and then have them don't make it back. But migration. So this is what feels hurt? Time. Okay. Is there some schedule then? Does sorrow go south? And if so, how? Does it follow landmarks we can't read? Or does sadness have some inner compass guiding it away? And if in fact that's how hurt heals, want to be back someday? It's a little more abstract, right? So the beginning of this, what heals hurt, is asking a question. Then he answers it with another question. Time, right? You've heard of that term. People have heard that phrase. Time heals all wounds, right? So what heals hurt? Time. Okay. When? Right? Time is about. Is there some schedule then? Does sorrow go south? And if so, how? Does it follow landmarks we can't read? Or does sadness have some inner compass guiding it away? And if in fact that's how hurt heals, won't it be back someday? Like, you put your finger up.
Oh, you talking to me?
No, I think Magdalene put her hand up. No? All right.
No, I did. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was a mistake. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Says that I saw you unmute for a minute.
Yes. This is like you want us to like say like how we interpret the poem, correct?
Yeah. Anything you heard?
Oh, like I feel like this is the person who's going through pain at the moment, and it wants it to like go away, and just don't know how to get rid of the pain.
Yes. Right. It's somebody who's definitely feeling pain and is figuring out like what to do with it. Right. And is wondering, is asking those questions. Yeah. John, you have your hand up.
Yes, pretty much the same thing like he said. He's questioning the pain, when it's going to go away, and if it will ever come back, and how to deal with it.
This poem, hopefully, unfortunately, whether it's on a big level or small level, you're all old enough to have experienced some kind of pain in your life. And if you haven't, I'm so happy for you. But if you have, and it's something sometimes depending on the degree of pain and hurt, we wonder like, when is this going to go away? When is this going to stop? And then he starts wondering if you tell me that time heals wounds, okay, then when, how long, Then the connection to migration patterns, it says as it goes south, right? And so do you know, like, when birds fly south, how do they know where they're going? Right? How do the butterflies know to start in Canada and to go down to the United States, and then
The sun will guide them.
sun, the temperature, the climate, the landscape, but they're using all these other things to navigate this. And he's saying, like, what do we do? How do we navigate it? Like, pain is something that what is the migration pattern of
The
pain?
landmarks and the compass.
Yes, all those kinds of things, right? So he's using language and making parallels between travel and migration and pain, right? How does pain travel? How does pain migrate, right? Do you just wake up one day and it doesn't, is it time? What is it? And then once you feel better, what makes you think that you will feel pain again when it comes back to it? Right? So,
I feel like grief. This is like grief. Grief is like you grieve in patterns, right?
Mhm.
Because it's like that pain really doesn't ever leave, because you're gonna be constantly those memories are the landmarks, right? And your feelings that are triggered by certain things that you see or experience, that's your inner compass right there. Either guiding it away or making it return. So definitely this resonates with me in terms of like grieving.
Yeah.
But Professor, can we get some happy poems?
Yeah, I'm
You
trying
be
to think.
taking us deep. You be taking us to some places.
I want you to feel it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I know. I was saying that when I was looking at the poems. I was like, oh, when I was picking the poems to read today, and I was like, damn,
That one really had a toll on you, huh?
right. Well, but the thing is that that a lot of times, the poems that are happy poems are like, we've had like, we've had like some happy poems. That the love poems are usually the ones that are, and that are the ones that are happier. And we've read, the Still I Rise was powerful, like about, somebody rising up. But let's see, here's a challenge, okay? Like, I could ask something. Are there any of you who have a poem that you're using that you want me to read?
Power. I think we read that one though. Did we?
I have not read Power. Power is also intense.
Yeah, I like it because I'm at like my major is criminal justice, so that's kind of what I'm into.
I could read Power. I'm gonna read maybe I'll read about people dating, young people dating, embraces. I'll look for Power in a minute. I'll just for the end of the poetry packet. I'm going to read Power because that was a request. It's not going to take us to a happy place, but I'll read it this time. So you all can hear it. And I'll share the screen. It's Power. Power is by Audre Lorde, and Audre Lorde is a wonderful poet that used to actually teach at Hunter. She taught for many years. She wrote a lot about. I guess a lot of the poems are like heavy. I'm gonna find there was a poem I found, this wonderful poem by an Indian writer that I wanted to share, but I know it's in my computer at home. But, maybe I'll do that at transition. I'll read that poem on Monday in the transition. Here's Power by Audre Lorde, and I'm sharing my screen so you can see it, right? The difference between poetry and rhetoric is being ready to kill yourself instead of your children. I'm trapped in a desert of raw gunshot wounds and a dead child dragging his shattered black face off the edge of my sleep. Blood from his punctured cheeks and shoulders is the only liquid for miles, and my stomach churns at the imagined taste while my mouth splits into dry lips. Without loyalty or reason, thirsty for the wetness of his blood as it sinks into the whiteness of the desert where I am lost. Without imagery or magic, trying to make power out of hatred and destruction, trying to heal my dying son with kisses, only the sun will bleach his bones quicker. The policeman who shot down a 10-year-old in Queens stood over the boy with his cop shoes and childish blood, and a voice said, "Die, you little motherfucker." And there are tapes to prove it. At his trial, this policeman said in his own defense, "I didn't notice a size nor nothing else, only the color." And there are tapes to prove that too. Today, that 37-year-old white man with 13 years of police forcing was set free by 11 white men who said they were satisfied justice had been done, and one black woman who said, "They convinced me," meaning they had dragged her 4'10" 10" black woman's frame over the hot coals of 4 centuries of white male approval until she let go, the first real power she ever had, and lined her own womb with cement to make a graveyard for our children. I've not been able to touch the destruction within me, but unless I learn to use the difference between poetry and rhetoric, my power tool will run corrupt as poisonous mold, or lie limp and useless as an unconnected wire. One day I will take my teenage plug and connect it to the nearest socket, raping an 85-year-old woman who is somebody's mother. And as I beat her senseless and set a torch to her bed, a Greek chorus will be singing 3/4 time. Poor thing, she never heard a soul. What beasts they are. So that one is almost like a narrative poem, right? Almost telling a whole story, you know. Who asked for power? I forgot who asked for that.
I did.
You did. What did you think about hearing it?
I think it was very vivid. Like she was, like how you said, like she was, like now that you're reading it, I mean, I read it, but like hearing somebody else read it, it kind of sounds like a story written in a poem. And I noticed that she wrote twice, like the difference between poetry and what was the other? Rhetoric. I
Rhetoric.
think.
Rhetoric.
Yeah, but I think it's like how can I say? It's like racism, power, like white premises in it too. It's like she feels pain and hate, like hate at the fact like that, you know, it's an ongoing thing.
Well, I mean, one of the things that she mentioned in the poem is that how this, in terms of she's talking about police brutality, we talked about that for My Own Protection. Remember that poem by Essex Temple when you were all in groups? And it's interesting that you could see through history, right? There is a series of these poems. Audre Lorde probably wrote that poem in the 80s, right? So she wrote that in the 80s. Essex Temple wrote that in the 90s. There's so many poems that keep repeating this. So this whole idea of Black Lives Matter has come into a height, but it's also building on a historical context of police brutality. And she's talking about an account that she's saying the policeman said, "I didn't notice anything for his color," right? And that was his defense. Like he said that as a form of defense. And it talks about, just in general, the impact, right, that has on us, like on just say me, right? That when you see someone like yourself being treated as if they don't matter, right? And that there's a justification, they get away with it because the jury says, "We get you. I understand what you're talking about," because they all agree. I think there's been a shift and it continues to shift, but it is that. So one of the things she does also is she does the parallel of the idea of power, right? That the white person used power, that the white policeman uses power as a policeman in this situation, maybe abusively. Then later on, she says, "I plugged my teenage self into my teenage socket and beat an 85-year-old white woman repeatedly, right? So then talking about a Black person committing crime on a white person, and the response is that the poor woman, she didn't hurt her soul, like she doesn't deserve that death. Whereas the Black kid, regardless of what he did, we don't know what he did, deserves the death, that it's justified, or she does this kind of thing. And then she used the word power too, saying the jury was 11 white men and 1 Black woman. She said the white woman said they convinced me. She goes, that means that they dragged her. I mean, they dragged her to the hot coals of 400 years of racism to finally she was like, she just gave in, right? And then she says she seals her womb as a cement grave for our children. So, and that's the only power she had. The power was to give in, right? So this whole idea of, it's like, it leaves you in this question, right? And in the quandary, it doesn't really give you any solution. It's kind of really talks about like what it is. Abel has their hand raised.
Did you call on me, Professor?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I was gonna say that I was thinking, like sometimes in those spaces, like for example, being a juror in a situation like that where everyone else is white, like you render yourself powerless sometimes because you're experiencing so many microaggressions that you're probably experiencing the same abuse that the person that was, killed is experiencing. And then being in those spaces and trying to assert your power, right? Like when she was describing attacking the white old woman, I also thought of that figuratively in terms of like, sometimes when you're trying to assert your power, you are identified as someone that is aggressive, right? Or people become apprehensive when you approach them and like you occupy space and everyone is looking at you like you're too much, right? Because your energy and stuff like that. So like I guess I connected a little bit to this poem being in a space that is dominantly white. Yeah, definitely mostly white, and educating Black and brown children.
Right.
And just thinking about how, when I arrive into the space, my students respond a certain way and they experience other people in a different way. So yeah, power is a really, really big word. And I think that being really intentional when you're in those spaces is what gives you the power, right?
Yeah, it's talking about like the different ways in which power, right? Yes, definitely. How power looks differently, how power is exercised differently, right? And that in terms of like whether you think what the policeman did was wrong, it was the exercise of his power, right? And, how's the internet been? Been okay? Yeah, maybe it was just a little.
Yeah, I hear you, I think.
Okay, yeah, sorry it was not working earlier, but thanks for putting me in. So I'll read another poem and then I can take a request if you have another request. But I'll actually read a poem. I don't know if it's happy. All right, Rosemary, are you just giving me a thumbs up for the internet? Okay. So it's maybe it's not. I don't know if it's happy. Yes.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Oh, okay, it's okay. So so I don't know if it's happy, but I think it's a beautiful poem, right? It's a beautiful poem about like friendship, and you can think about it as love, but I think about it as friendship, and so this one is in the first part of the packet.
I think I'm gonna change my poem into power because I had white lies and I was like confused and still stuck about it.
Okay.
I still haven't wrote. I was trying to figure it out. I did a thesis statement, but then I was like, okay, for power, I will get a great essay out of that.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. So this one's called Coda, and it's by Jason Schinder, and it's in this book called The Art of Losing, Poems of Grief and Healing. But I feel like it's one of the beautiful poems in it. But Jason Schinder, I believe, is like in his 40s, and it's still alive. Not a poet; it's a dead poet comes out and alive. So here's the poem. And now I know what most deeply connects us. After that summer so many years ago, and it isn't poetry, although it is poetry. And it isn't illness, although we have that in common. And it isn't gratitude for every moment, every type of the terror, even the terrifying ones, even the physical pain, though we are grateful. And it isn't even death, though we are halfway through it. Or even when you describe the magnificence of being alive, catching a glimpse in the store window of your blowing hair and chapped lips. Though it is beautiful, it is. But it is that you're my friend out here on the far reaches of what humans can find out about each other. This piece, that ending, right? So it's again, I'll read it again because it's short. It says, and I know, and now I know what most deeply connects us. After that summer so many years ago, and it isn't poetry, although it is poetry, and it isn't gratitude for every moment, even for the terrifying ones, even the physical pain, though we are grateful. And it isn't even death, though we are halfway through it. Or even the way you describe the magnificence of being alive, catching a glimpse in the store window of your blowing hair and chapped lips. Though it is beautiful, it is. But it is you're my friend out here on the far reaches of what humans can find out about each other. What do you think of that one?
Is this the one you were talking about, friendship?
Yes, this is the one.
Okay, so I have a question. So what is coda? What does that mean?
Coda is kind of like a a I'm trying to think of it in the context of the poem. Coda is like the the foundation, the DNA, the thing that drives us, that keeps us connected. You know, that's what in the sense of the
Okay.
poem, what coda means. What do you?
Doesn't that poem embraces the pain and heartbreaking of more, like basically of more what is it called, mortgaging, when you're how can I say that word, when somebody's dying, like what's
Okay.
more, what's that word?
Transmorgifying?
More, no, more,
Mortal?
mourning.
Morning.
Yeah, that.
Morning.
Like,
Yes, that.
well, you could take it there if you want to think of it as mourning, but and I think, you know, I was trying to keep it happy, but Thelma's taking us there. Because, you know, coda also means like a culminating event, like something that is the culmination. But in it, it isn't in it, but it is what the poem is about. It's a realization, right? It's a realization, saying like we've been through so much together. I'm trying to like, what is it that keeps us together? And it's like we've been through so much. We've been through this, we've been through that. Even the terrifying moments, even the pain. Is it the pain? Is it the poetry? What keeps us together? You know, what keeps this this incredible connection between the two of us, right? And then it says, let me just go to the poem. And then it says, and it says, it isn't even death, right? Even though we're halfway there, meaning that these are not young people, right? These are people. It doesn't mean that they're dying at that moment, but it just means that, you know, I don't know. I'm assuming that most of you are like much younger than I am, but like, you know, I've had friends who have been friends with like 25 years, you know, and you're like, wow, like just a friend of mine, my college roommate had his birthday this week, and I wrote a note. And his sister, I remember I used to go to his house when I was I met him in junior high school, and his sister was his little girl that was playing in the corner, right? And then she, you know, high school, she bigger. Then we were college roommates, and so we were friends for all this time, and then ultimately moved away. But she remembered me. She said to me, I wrote a note, and it's like, did I meet you in high school, Carl? And she said, no, you met. She responded, no, you met in junior high school. I remember when you used to come over when you guys were in junior high school. And then she said to me, thank you for being another big brother. And I didn't know that I had that significance to her. But clearly, yes, I remember being there as well. And I was totally different from her brothers. And her brothers were like Carl and I were cool. But anyway, but the poem is talking about looking. So when it says, even though it is even death, even though we're halfway there, right? Meaning that we're halfway through it, but they're in the middle of their lives, right? But it ends with this place, right? It's saying what has kept us together all of these years, right? I realize is that you're my friend out here on the far reaches of what humans can find out about each other, right? And how we can connect, right? That human beings have the capacity, the ability to find out and discover so much about each other. And through pain and through death, and through the beauty of poetry and that beautiful moment when, you know, the poem says, I saw you and that you were happy about being alive, that your hair was blowing, right? But then they juxtapose it in your chapped lips, right? Because it's never ever perfect. It's that, that's what it is, that we can be friends in the far reaches, right? Doesn't matter how far we go on what human beings can be, right? And that's like, don't you want friendship like that? Don't you want love like that? You know what I mean? It doesn't, and you know, I mean, I could tell you that this poem, I remembered this when I was looking, because my friend, I may have talked about my best friend Rue, and she lives in Philadelphia, and I visit her, and she had 3 daughters, and she got divorced. Well, I gave this poem, I dedicated this poem to her on her birthday like 2 years ago. I wrote this, you know, I sent it to her in a note, and sent it to her, and she says, that is true, that's us in a way, that we know each other so well. And she goes, you know things about me that nobody knows, not even my kids or my husband. You know those things, and vice versa. He knows a lot about me too. But that, you know, that you could build those kinds of relationships. So that's where I think, you know, maybe in my eyes, it's a beautiful poem. But you're right. I forgot who said it. It was Dinoshka or Thelma or somebody said that there was something in it about death. But there is the end, right? Like that it's the final, the deathbed, the mourning, or something like that. There is that coda. Another. I didn't want to give you this definition right away, because then you'd be like, I thought it was going to be a happy poem, but coda means like the final event. Like that's another definition of it, the culminating, the ending event. So this could also be like the final words that two people share to each other, right? But even, you know, I often think about that. This gets heavy, but I think it's also like, you know, that like how beautiful would it be that if you know, have the opportunity that when you're dying to be able to say the things you want, right? To be able to have the people around you that you want, right? But being surrounded by love, the people you love the most, right? Not everybody will have that opportunity, as we know, people die alone and people die in accidents. You know, death is one of the things that will, you know, happen to all of us. So with love, and we have love poems and other things as well. So hopefully love will be beautiful.
Professor,
Yes, I'm gonna pause and see if there's any other questions, and then
do you have any personal poems that you would like to share with us
me,
that you wrote?
Yeah, it's interesting. I am definitely a writer. I don't profess to be a poet, and I love poetry, and I find it very difficult. But I could find maybe one or something. Maybe I'll do that for all of you. Share a poem that I've written. I did write a couple of poems. One thing is I don't usually share them because I don't think they're so successful. But you see poets, they do so many things, right? The way they use words, the way they're working with imagery, the way they're working with, you know, they're using so many things to craft these poems. So they use line breaks, you know, there's so much happening inside of poems. So well then I think I'll just read I'll read the white lies because I think Thelma was struggling with it. But several of you used white lies as one of the poems in your thing, and so maybe I'll just read that one. Let's see where it's at. Here it is. So Natasha Trethel, go ahead. Mhm.
Are we ever gonna have to write our own poem?
No, not in this class.
Okay.
You know,
No, I mean, it's actually fun too. I've tried. Honestly, I rather write than to read one because I feel like poetry is so complicated to understand because of like the things, and then like everybody has a different way of like reading and like thinking at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just hard to read, but it's so easy to write.
That's interesting that you feel I feel the opposite. I feel it's easy to read and harder to write. But I hear you. But I hear you in Nushka, because I think there is well, the first thing we, you know, in terms of poetry is to understand that we all have the ability to understand it. Right? We all can do it. And sometimes maybe because of the way things are structured or the way things are laid out, that they're not the same way as we would when we're reading a story or a novel, right? that's a different kind of organization of words on a page, that we still have the capacity, we're able to pull some things out of it. And then you slowly, you keep getting more of the more you read it. But I'll read White Lies. So White Lies is Natasha Trethewey. That's an image of her there. And she is she won the Pulitzer Prize for poetry, which is a very big prize, and they get lots and lots of money on it. But and to get it for a poem, I think is amazing. She just is publishing a book right now. I think she just got a book deal to publish a book about her growing up, and basically she's mixed race, to black and white, Canadian, I believe is her father, and her mother is Mississippi. And so here's White Lies, right? And here it goes. The lies I could tell when I was growing up: light bright, near white, high yellow, red boned, in a black place, are just white lies. I could easily tell the white folks that we lived uptown, not in that pink and green shanty-fled shotgun section along the tracks. I could act like my homemade dresses came straight out of the window of Maison Blanche. I could even keep quiet, quiet as kept, like the time a white girl said, squeezing my hand, now we have 3 of us in this class. But I paid for it every time Mama found out. She laid her hands on me. Oops, somebody's. But I paid for it every time Mama found out. She laid her hands on me, then washed out my mouth with ivory soap. This is to purify you, she said, and cleanse your lying tongue. Leaving her, I swallowed the suds, thinking that they'd work from the inside out. So just gonna go back here, right? The lies I could tell when I was growing up: light bright, near white, high yellow, red boned, in a black place, were just white lies. I could tell the white folks that we lived uptown, not in that pink and green shanty-fled shotgun section along the tracks. I could act like my homemade dresses came straight out of the window of Maison Blanche. I could even keep quiet, quiet as kept, like the time a white girl said, squeezing my hand, now we have 3 of us in this class. But I paid for it every time Mama found out. She laid her hands on me, then washed out my mouth with ivory soap. This is to purify you, she said, and cleanse your lying tongue. Leaving her, I swallowed the suds, thinking that they'd work from the inside out. All right.
I said this is something more like recognition and discrimination.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, what do you mean recognition and discrimination?
Recognition meaning that she wants to blend in, as she says here. 1 second, it says here, I can easily tell white folks that we live uptown in the pink and green shanty field shotgun section along the tracks, even though she could say that she lives in a white neighborhood, even though she doesn't live in a white neighborhood. So I can explain.
So there's a phrase for that. There's a phrase, it's called passing, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, white passing. Like, I feel
that?
like Hispanics okay. Do that often. Mm-hmm. The white passing Hispanic, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's one of the ideas, right, of passing. That's what she's talking about, that she's mixed race, but she could pass for white. And then she says, so the lies I could tell, right, when I was growing up. And she goes, light bright, near white, high yellow, red boned, in a black place, which is white lies. What is a high yellow person?
Asian. Is Hispanics?
Asian.
Okay, you could say that. Yeah, you would say that I could see why you would say that. A high yellow is a phrase used in Black culture to describe a very light-skinned white person. They say, oh, that person's high yellow. This idea of red boned to like Native American, near white, light bright, so they're using all these ideas of colorism, right? That's the term we use now. So in the beginning, she goes, all those things in a black place were just what? White lies. What are white lies?
That it won't harm anybody.
Yeah.
A lie that won't harm anyone.
The idea that like to harm anybody, like a fib. Erica, did you make a gesture?
I would say something that won't hurt anyone.
Like a little lie.
Like a little lie. Right.
Little white lies.
Like a little lie. So that's the idea of a white lie, right? White lie is like, it's not that serious. It's a little lie. It's not to harm anybody. It's to protect
Even
you.
the term, is like, why the little lie gotta be white?
Exactly. Hello. Right. So she is like, so Natasha is playing with this, right? She's playing with the idea of the idea of white, right? She's playing with the concept of white. And that is happening throughout the whole poem, from the title of the idea of white lies, her using this language about white, near light, near bright, white lies, and her saying, I think I could act like my homemade dresses came straight out of the window of Maison Blanche. What do you think Maison Blanche? What does she mean by that line? Here's the line in the middle of the page. I could act
Like a designer,
yes.
right? Designer dresses. Because I mean, if she feels like she's white passing, then they're gonna think that, you know, she's living that lifestyle. Where, you know, that's why probably her mom washed her mouth out. Because why are you hiding your truth? You should be proud of what you have. Like, I made those dresses, if anything.
Exactly. That means the dresses her mother made are so fine that she could say, I bought them at a boutique, right? At a designer. Maison means the house of, and Blanche is what? Any of you speak French in the class? You don't have to speak French. You can kind of tell what Blanche
White.
is.
Isn't that white? Oh.
Yes. Right? So I can straight out of the White House, right? Maison Blanche. Maison means house, right? In French, Maison Blanche, right? And then I think it was somebody who was talking, Mabel or Thelma or someone was saying that her mother washed her mouth out with what kind of soap?
Ivory soap, also white.
Right? And ivory is like a white soap, but ivory is what? It's
like off-white, but yeah.
Like ebony's white and ivory, right? And then she says, the mother says, this is to purify you, she said, and cleanse your lying tongue, right? To purify her. And then she says, believing her, I swallowed the suds, thinking that they would work from the inside out.
So it's like almost a sense of shame. Like she wants to be, she wants to be, I don't want to say acknowledged, but she wants to continue being a part of that white. It's almost like she has shame because it cleansed from the inside out. Like she wants to wash the black away.
Exactly. It's not
Why not? Out of control. Not my child.
But yes, isn't that heavy? The ending of that, she was believing her, right? And so I think one of the things is that, I think one of the powers, I think, in the pain of this poem is that a lot of times in this situation, and I think some people were saying, people who try to white pass, basically they're trying to connect to what they feel is the power structure, right? They're trying to figure, I want my life to be easier, right? I don't want to have to deal with all this stuff. Or they're in a sense, really try to get their self-value, right? I think it's very powerful. But she works with a lot of imagery of white in here, right? From the White House to the white lies, to the white ivory soap, to the idea of passing for white. So she uses with a lot of these ideas. There's a lot of imagery inside of that. And the theme is about passing, right? And how she does that. And there's also themes about white lies. Is it that big a deal that she was passing? Maybe to herself it wasn't, but to her mother, and we know now to Mabel in this class, it was a big deal, right? For her to try to do that.
I mean, I was thinking like, what year was this written?
I don't know, but I think let's see if I have it on here. I can find out, but it's probably in either the 90s or the 2000s.
Oh, okay,
I think it was the 90s as well, when I was reading research. I'm thinking like, in terms of like that feeling of being white passing, I feel like it comes from the power that's associated with the idea of whiteness, right? So that's what I was thinking.
And there's also, like, you remember her mother is from Mississippi, so her mother's from the South. And I don't know if anybody in this class is from the South or has any experience with the South, but still there's a big divide. I mean, there was a civil war in this country, right? Probably there was a civil war and it was about slavery, and it was between the South wanting to keep it and the North wanting to end it, right? And it was ended, but I mean, that was the fight was about. They didn't want it to end. And so there's a different kind of position between the South of the U.S. and the North of the U.S. And even though a lot of it's changed all around, we missed certain things. It's still. Right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We have 5 minutes, and so I'm going to pause. And I thought maybe we'd get one more in, but we won't today. And I'll see if I can find a poem. And if we still feel up to it on Monday, I'll read it. But or if one of you have a poem that you want to share, why don't we do that? We'll create a little space on Monday if anybody has a poem that they want to share. Who was it that was easier? Was it Ninochka or Nidia? One of you said it was easier to write a poem than just to read it. So if any of you have a poem that you want to read, okay. So then, if anybody has any questions about the essay, if not, then the next time I see you, it would be over. We'll be over the hump of the essay, and then next week we will begin fiction. We'll begin our next section of the class, which is fiction. And I'm doing some stories, and I'll do an intro to fiction next class, and then we'll spend the next couple of weeks reading some short stories, and that's Eric.
So you have to format how you want the poem anywhere that us to view.
What do you mean?
Because you say you wanted it in the format like what MLA and stuff like that. But do you have it how you have it down, like for the guidelines?
Yes. So I'm going to open up the file today. I'm going to open up the discussion. Today in it, I'm going to put in, there's the handout that we did on the MLA formatting. So we did that. I think we did that last class. So if you look at the video from last class, it'll show you more. But it's basically, the idea of the first page being your name, my name, the class and the date, the upper left-hand corner of it, the page number, that it's double spaced, all the text, that it's 1 inch margin around all the pages, that it has a title, right, that the paragraphs are indented. So all of that is in the handout. That is a brief example of what it looks like in the handout. So you can see what it should physically look like when you set up the formatting of the page. Yes, I'll open up the when I open it up, it'll have the instruction, and then I'll include the handout on it. Questions?
Professor, I have a question.
Sure.
Where are we gonna send you the essay?
Oh, it's gonna be on Blackboard. So I'm gonna open up on Blackboard and you'll send it there.
When?
Oh, by Sunday. It has to be Sunday by 11:59 p.m.
Okay, if I understand, we need to take one poem and do that the essay about that.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the essay is about 3 paragraphs or 2?
It should be 5.
5 paragraphs? Okay.
Right. It should be
3
an introduction.
Introduction,
3 body. Yes, you were saying it. I'm going to say yes to what you were saying.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Excuse me, how many pages? 3 to 4?
Yes.
12 pages?
Yeah, 3 to 4 pages.
Yeah, inshallah. We're going to try our best.
Okay.
Okay, bye. Have a good night.
All right. Okay, then I'll hang out for any other questions, but if you don't have any more, have a great night. Enjoy your weekend. I'll see you on Monday. And then
Good night, everyone.
Johnny.
Good night,
Sam.
everyone.
Everybody, good night.
Thank you, Professor. Good night, everyone.
Tamar. Take care, Tamar.
Have a good weekend.
Yes.
Good weekend, Professor.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
So just hang out there, Johnny. I'm gonna look in the emails. So yeah, it's so strange. It's the first time it happened. It says the email delivery has failed. Resend the message, but it's the right one. So you said you also sent it to a Gmail. So let me see if it's.
And that's funny because I am vaccinated.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have to do with that. I hope not. But check your. Just make sure. Did you put your information in the? Here we go. I have it. I did. I do have it here. Normally, I don't look here. All right. So I have it. Johnny, I have it. I have it in my email. So that email, I normally don't look there, so it's best to do it here. But I'm glad you did it there because and told me about it. So I have it. I could take a look at it and give you feedback.
He couldn't hear me. I was muted. Sorry. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. You too. Bye-bye. This is not the finished product. I just started it and I wanted to see more or less if I was going the right route.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
I know
so
I need to add to the introduction and everything else I need to.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right, Magdalene. Good night.
Good night.
Magdalene and Padanu, do you have any questions? Good night. Okay, so class is out, and I said to folks I would read Heartbeats again because I wasn't recording, and you all did some incredible feedback on that poem. You really hit a lot of things in the head. You spoke about, you understood, Gregory talked about, the emotional aspect. Johanny talked about the sense of a countdown, that something, there was a countdown in it. Elma as well talked about, immediately picked up that it was tracing the illness of a person with HIV and AIDS. So I'm going to read Heartbeats one time just so we could have it for posterity on our app. And in our group as a record, and that's how we began our class, and I was not going to keep everybody repeated, although some of you wanted me to do it again. We would have the class that, for today. So we started with this poem, and here we go. I'm going to read Heartbeats by, and I think I'm going to share my screen so that I could do it. Yeah, just there's other poems. We're going to return to poetry. I didn't say this, but we'll return to poetry a little later. And when we return to poetry, we will have slam poets that have words in our poems in our packet, but we'll get to hear them perform it. So I didn't read any of theirs because we'll have an opportunity to read theirs a little later. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to read the poem, and then so this is Heartbeats by Melvin Dixon, and we talked about who he was, and that he was a wonderful poet and a scholar, and he died from AIDS in 1992. So Heartbeats by Melvin Dixon. Work out, 10 laps, chin ups, look good, steam room, dress warm, call home, fresh air, eat right, rest well, sweetheart, safe sex, sore throat, long flu, hard nose, beware. Test blood, count cells, reds thin, whites low, dress warm, eat well, short breath, fatigue, night sweats, dry cough, loose stools, weight loss, get mad, fight back, all home, rest well. Don't cry, take time, no sex, eat right, call home, talk slow, chin up, no air, arms wide, nose hard, cough dry, hold on, mouth wide, drink this, breathe in, breathe out, no air, breathe in, breathe out, rooms, hot, eat right, that scan, chin up, breathe in, breathe out, no air, no air, thin blood, full lungs, mouth dry, leaks, no air to breathe. Sweetheart, don't stop. Breathe in. Out at the moment, the rhythm of the heartbeat. Feel the rhythm this is working in, that inside of the poem, he spoke about breathe in, breathe out, it's here. Right? At the end, breathe in, breathe out, right? At the end of the poem too, sweetheart, don't stop. Stops. The person is going. So it shows us the kind of trajectory of the person who starts out healthy, becomes sick, gets sicker, and ultimately dies. And we know that in the 90s, 80s, that to get HIV or AIDS was considered, for the most part, death sentence. And people began to count down to when they were going to die. Nowadays, medication and those kinds of things that are used to keep people alive and healthy. Despite having HIV. That's that he's writing about. So we talked about in class how it was not only the physical decay, the physical decline of a person with HIV, but also the emotional roller coaster, right? The beginning, it says chin-ups, right? Workout and laps, chin-ups look good, right? Then it goes steam room, it's like a gym, right? Probably dress warm, call home fresh air, right? There's that, but then later on, you know, sore throat, long flu, hard nose, beware, right? Then we go into, you know, later on, it says night sweats, dry cough, loose stools, weight loss, and they're sick. And here the emotional, get mad, fight back, call home, rest well, right? Don't cry, take charge. No sex, eat right. Next line, call home, talk slow, chin up, no air. The emotional aspect, the getting mad, the don't cry, the chin up, right? All part of the emotional aspect or trajectory that's happening inside of the poem as a person who is experiencing their own emotional impact to their physical decay or the physical illness that is happening to their bodies. So also we talked about how Melvin Dixon was working with words, right? Where in the first stanza, chin-ups, right, are an exercise, about an exercise, chin-ups. And later on in the several stanzas down, the last one from the first column, he does chin up, and that means, you know, keeping the chin up, keeping your spirits up. Another way he is working with words here is here in the third stanza. He says, sweetheart, safe sex, and a sweetheart there, somebody who you care about, like somebody that you love, a sweetheart. And at the end, he says, sweetheart, don't stop. So he's like talking to himself, his own heart, sweetheart, don't stop. And he says, breathe in, breathe out. This is life in the poem. And yeah, so it's very powerful. And as we said in class, it's a heavy poem, but it's also one where he's working with so many things inside of it. And thanks for indulging that. And I know we had heavy poems, but we'll think about having some lighter poems in the future. Maybe you could write that in the evaluation. The poems were good, but they were heavy. We want some happier poems. So we'll try that. All right, so that's it for the recording of the class. I will see everyone soon, and we will continue doing the work that we